Hello and welcome to this week's watercolour lesson. This week we're doing something a little bit more craft-like, but it still has very great relevance to your watercolour painting, and I think you'll find it really very useful. I made a lesson for you last year about painting roses. Go back and have a look at it maybe before you start this week's lesson. And in it I explained that with a rose, each separate petal, it bends over at the top, and at the top there's a white highlight, and that's what we were looking for as we were painting with watercolour. In the first instance, we'll be showing the white highlight with the torn paper edge, and in the second example, basically we're using a white background and just leaving spaces, which gives the same impression. Yes, use any old watercolour paper that you've got knocking around. Go through some of your old pictures that you're not too happy with, and either you can rip those up and use some of the various merge washes that are already there, or indeed just turn them over and paint the back and use that. Right, before I go on to make these two different sorts of roses, I just want to explain the fundamental difference between the way they're made up. You can see these that are just sitting on the background here. They actually have a white edge to all the ripping of the paper, whereas these ones, if you have a look here, this doesn't have a white edge. The white edge is sort of underneath, and the edge is actually made by the background, actually putting it on a white piece of paper so the light shows through. Let me explain a little bit better here. I've got this coloured paper that I'm going to use for some leaves, and basically the difference is when if you hold it like this and rip with your right hand, obviously the other way if you're left-handed, if you rip away from you, that white line is hidden underneath the paper. It's there. So if you rip away from you, you don't get that white edge, which is what we're doing with those roses. If you, I'll save that for something, if you rip towards you, you can see that you are making a white edge there. Okay, it's a nice little leaf. So away from you, no white edge, the white edge is there. Towards you, you are making that edge. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but trial and error, as they say. Let's start with these ones first then. Right, so you can see here I've made myself up a sort of flat wash, so we've got quite a nice background because I want there to be a contrast. These are all my bits of paper from all the ripping up I've been doing earlier. You can see this is an old piece of paper that I've been practicing on, and I've made a fairly red corner, and I'm going to use that to make the first little flower. So really what you need to do is to get into a situation where you're really quite happy. You might have, it depends how good your fingers are. So we're going to start off with making something absolutely tiny right for the middle, and you haven't got an awful lot of control over this, but it doesn't matter because it helps with the slightly sort of abstract shape. So pulling towards you, we want to make a little petal. It doesn't really need to be petal shape as such, so we're not building up a 3D flower. We won't stick it down till later, so we can have a good sort of play around with it. Having done that, I quite like that shape. Let's just round it off at the edges a little bit. So that means we can pop that bit in there. Let's take another little bit. So keep all these bits because they can come in handy. Right, so pulling towards you again, make another little C shape, and we'll put that one. Try it out. You see, that's a bit of a funny shape, but try it out and see how it works. See, I quite like that. It's all a little bit fiddly until you stick it down, and then I think we'll have a fairly big outside Can you see? Pulling it towards you all the time gives you that nice white outline and a fairly big petal here. So I'll hold that. Hey, that's quite sweet, isn't it? I think we could probably do with a little bit more dark in the middle. Right, while I'm waiting for that bit of paper to dry, and it must be dry otherwise it won't tear properly, I was thinking about whether or not to have a stem, and I've made the stem. This was really quite difficult to get it thin enough, but we don't want to start cutting at this stage because then we'll lose the feel of the picture. And I made a stem and a little leaf here, and I'm still not really decided as to whether to have it or not, but yeah, maybe we might put well, the beauty of this is that it's not stuck down until it's stuck down, so you can play around with them quite a bit, but I quite like that leaf. But yeah, I'll have a little think about it and might come back to that. Right, now this is the second way of going about things. So this time, instead of making the, let's just pull this down, instead of pulling it towards you and getting that broken white line all around the edge in that way, what we're doing this time is tearing the paper that way. So we've got a neat edge, and in order to show the petal-like effect, what we're going to do is to be using the white of the page. What we're going to be doing is using the white of the paper in order to suggest the actual highlights between the petals. Notice that this time we're not making petals because we've got the white background. We're actually ripping C-shapes, so they start off really quite small at the centre of the flower, and then they get bigger and bigger as you go outwards. Right, now I didn't mention it in the film, but obviously when you're happy with your design, you need to stick all the bits down onto the paper. It might have occurred to you that these designs would make lovely Valentine's cards, so with that in mind I've got another few ideas coming up in the same vein over the next few weeks. In the meantime, thank you for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.